And we are live. Hello there, folks. Let's just do a quick sound check to make sure we've got everybody. Chris, you with us?
Hello.
Yep, that registered great. Connie, are you with us?
Yep.
Excellent,
Yep.
that registered as well. Obi?
Hello.
And that registered brilliantly. And Dave, finally.
Hello.
Yep, you all came up through loud and clear. That's great. Can I just confirm that everybody can hear the plinky plunky music, those who are signed on to Sirenscape?
I can hear the sort of like the ambience of the engines.
That's coming from Foundry, so that's cool. I do have accompanying music for those who want to log in to Sirenscape. I will send you the link just to be sure. It's the same link as I did before, but let's send you that link anyways. There it is in Discord. So before we get started properly and before we roll the intro video, we have an intro video, albeit a small one. Just
Okay, yeah, now I can hear it.
Now you can hear it. Awesome. Obi, Dave, if you can confirm for me whether or not you are listening to Sirenscape and can hear it.
I'm not logged in.
Okay,
Oh,
fine.
okay.
Fine.
Give me 2 seconds.
Giving you 2 seconds. 1 Mississippi. 2 Mississippi. I jest, of course.
Oh.
Okay, I'm in and I can hear it also.
Excellent. Now, if you do notice...
I can hear it also.
Excellent. Some people with slightly less powerful laptops or PCs sometimes get it because a lot is now coming through the browser. You may get a bit of slowdown. Feel free to turn Sirenscape off if it's causing too much of a slowdown for your system. If it's not, then brilliant. Okay then. So maybe it's time we kick this into the intro video. This is, however, I hasten to note, a temporary intro video. I am working on a better one, so this is like a space filler for now. So before I do put the intro video on and show everybody my silly, silly face, let me turn off the ambience and the blinky plunky music and put us onto the intro video. And there it was gone. See, I told you it was short. Hello, everybody who are watching the stream. Welcome along to the first episode of the new adventures of the USS Combs. Jeffrey, what's your name again? Sorry, I got it wrong. So, welcome along to my new and intrepid crew, which is a kind of a less than subtle joke because you've got an Intrepid-class starship. Okay, I'm going to stop trying to make jokes now because these are obviously going wrong. We're off to a great start already, you can see. Now, here we are, the new crew of the USS Combs. So, yes, as I've already stated, our new security chief and tactical officer, Lieutenant Garrow Lisi, played by Chris Bell, Chris will not be joining us tonight because he is elsewhere. I'll be sure to make him pay for his tardiness in some subtle way later on. However, we do have our first officer, Commander Baruva, played by Obi. We also have our chief medical officer, Dr. Sot, played by Chris P.
Hello.
We have our chief engineer, Lieutenant Lily Tavish, played by Dave.
Hello.
Finally, we have our chief of science, Lieutenant, and I'm going to just break it down to her surname, Lieutenant Gurkow, played by Connie.
That's right. Yep. Hello.
Now, because you guys are playing pretty much the senior bridge crew, every ship needs a captain. So for the moment, our captain is currently a non-player character called Captain Sobek, who is a Vulcan, and we also have a Chief Helm Officer, who's also a pre-made non-player character, Lieutenant Commander Lian Zhang. These obviously fill the spots that are vacant currently on the bridge. These are, as much as these are non-player characters, these are your characters, my players. So if there are points where you think, the captain or the helmsman would say this, would think this, as much as I will voice Captain Sobek and Commander Zhang, feel free to countermand me if you don't think they would do this, because these are your characters. These are your characters to do with as you will, as much as your own individual characters are also yours. Yes, Dave?
Matt, I can only see myself and not the rest of the crew. Is that supposed to be
Interesting.
a thing?
Why can you not see the rest of the crew? Let's quickly check.
And that's the case for me as well.
All
I
right.
can't.
then.
Oh, there we go. Now I
there
see
we are.
everyone.
Okay.
My God, the lights come on.
Sorry, I forgot. I forgot to put the battery in.
It's also my fault. There is a setting on these character tokens that enable vision. So I will enable your characters' vision. Now currently, because all of you have access to each other's characters, as soon as one of them was able to see, you were all able to see. So I'm going to go through everyone's characters and make sure that I've got vision enabled, including the starship. And just to be sure as well, for when and if you guys take over the non-player characters, do I want Sobek to be... Yes, I do. I want him to be linked. So let me quickly link him up. And Commander Zhang too. Let's have a... Make sure she's all linked up and ready to go. Yes, she is. Okay, cool. So, as ye newcomers can see, the USS Combs is an Intrepid-class, just like Voyager, so... It being at the point in time that we are at, I suppose it's probably worth it if I give you guys a bit of, as brief as I can, backstory onto the timeline that we're going to be playing in, and what kind of atmosphere and things you can expect. So we are starting off, not exactly right at the beginning of, but we are going to be starting in the early part of 2371. So that puts us not long after the wormhole to the Gamma Quadrant was discovered next to Station Deep Space Nine. This is also... let me just check my notes here. This is also not long after the Enterprise D was brought down on Viridian 3 by the Duras sisters. So we are entering into a period of time now for Starfleet and the Federation where they've heard whispers of this new power in the Gamma Quadrant called the Dominion. They're not exactly sure yet who and what the Dominion are, but it's starting to look seriously serious.
Maybe they're friendly.
They might be. But as a result, ripples have started going through Starfleet where it's a case of, well, first it's the Borg, and now we've got this to worry about. So, it's a very uncertain time at this moment for Starfleet. And of course, the flagship has gone down, so that's been a bit of a morale blow. So that's the kind of area we're starting in. So let's talk about you guys and your ship. This is obviously an Intrepid class and therefore is one of the newer ships that have come off the production lines. And so the ship, if you double click on the ship, you should get the character sheet that we made for the ship, including some extra little details that I filled in, including its registry, the USS Combs. I keep saying Combs. The USS Combs. I'll tell you what, every time I mispronounce the ship's name, I am going to reduce my threat bank by 1. So I will have less to work with. It'll teach me to pronounce this correctly very quickly. So yep, we now have NCC 74658 as the registry for this ship. And it was, as the service data attests, it was launched very, very recently. Down in traits, you can see, hopefully, that not only does it have the Federation Starship traits, it also has top of the line. Now, top of the line sounds good, but it can also mean other things, like certain bits of it might still be getting tested and not quite used to. So, top of the line can mean positives and negatives, like any trait does. But that gives you a clue. Because the Intrepid is a Scale 4 ship, we have 4 support crew, which are basically you can think of them as like co-stars or secondary cast members that we can call upon in a pinch if we need to. Thankfully, your captain, Captain Sobek, has got a talent, which is Supervisor, that increases this by 1. So you actually have the capacity to add up to 5 supporting characters that you could use if you wanted to. That's cool. Mm-hmm. As you can also see, you have a launch bay, which you can have as a number of small craft of scale 1 or 2 up to your ship's scale. Because you have a scale 4 ship, you are allowed, therefore, 4 small craft. One of these is a Type 9 shuttlecraft, one of those nice 2-person sleek shuttlecraft we see in Voyager. And you also have a Type 6 shuttlecraft, which are one of the more traditional next-gen looking shuttlecraft that can seat a lot more people. And you have 2 worker bees, which are those little handy maintenance craft that every ship should carry. An Intrepid-class is armed with phaser arrays and photon torpedoes and has its own tractor beam, so you're all geared out and ready. So, before we kick things off, are there any questions you would like to ask? Or are we good to go?
All good here, I think.
Alright then. Excellent. So, you've all rolled up your characters, you've all selected or rolled your characters' career events and their backgrounds and all of that, and that is all fantastic and dandy. We can work with every single one of those, and we've given you some extra juicy bits of story that kind of happened to your characters during the time before they found their way here. So, Captain Sobek, even though he's a Vulcan, he's actually a fairly charismatic Vulcan in that he's got this strange talent to be very, very persuasive. So he's not a typical Vulcan. And Captain Sobek himself has seen fit to recruit each and every one of your characters to the crew. So he has obviously looked through all the available candidates out there to be members of his crew, and he's chosen each and every one of you, specific to your individual abilities. Captain Sobek does have some personal history with Lieutenant Gurkow, and so appealed to her directly to join his crew. Captain Sobek, this is unusual for a Starfleet captain, to be given so much latitude, especially when he seems to be picking a lot of folks who are, shall we say, outside-the-box thinkers. That's putting it mildly in some of your cases. But Captain Sobek has the distinction of being one of the people who were responsible for creating the variable geometry warp system that is now used very much by the Intrepid-class. And as such, he was given special dispensation to choose the people he wanted to be on his ship. And that would be you guys. Now, obviously, as a Vulcan, Captain Sobek has a certain amount of trouble understanding more emotional species and their foibles, shall we say, their figures of speech. And that apparently is why he recruited Commander Baruva. Am I pronouncing that correctly, Obi?
I was originally thinking like Commander Baruva, but Baruva.
It rolls
like
off
that
the
better.
tongue.
Yeah.
As a Cation
Baruva.
as well, it sounds more like a cat name, Baruva almost. So I'm happy
for sure.
I'm happy to stick with what you originally had, but if you're happy to move to Baruva, then that's...
No, Baruva is great.
Okay, that's awesome. Dr. Sott was
Hello.
recruited by Captain Sobek, most notably because of Sott's past, where he had to take command briefly when an alien entity was encountered by Sott and his crew on the previous ship. And Sott was able to see around the fact that the alien creature lashed out at the ship because it was hurt, not because it was hostile, and came up with an ingenious method of using the ship's tractor beam and energy projector systems to help heal the creature. So Captain Sobek has praised Dr. Sott's quick thinking and ability to imprint his medical knowledge into unconventional situations. Likewise, everybody who's read Chief Engineer Command... pardon me, I'm promoting her before she's even got there. Lieutenant Tavish, as Chief Engineer, has something of an infamous history amongst anybody who looks into her Starfleet record as being a bit of a wild card, and can sometimes be a little difficult to work with. However, nobody can contest Lieutenant Tavish's ingenuity, especially when it comes to feats of engineering. So Captain Sobek, obviously looking for, like I've said before, outside-the-box thinkers, wanted Tavish on his ship because of that. He also approached, as I mentioned, Lieutenant Gurkow because they have history together, and Sobek apparently wants Gurkow to keep him on the level and act almost like his conscience. As for Lieutenant Garrow, the Chief of Security, well, Garrow, being a Bajoran, has seen an awful lot of action, but Garrow also displayed apparently a bit of engineering-based ingenuity in one of his past postings. So Sobek reckons that marks him as ideal for being the tactical and security officer on board the Combs. And so we have our primary, or most of our chiefs of staff assembled before us. And so, without any further ado, I'd like to introduce you all to the deck of your ship. Welcome to the bridge. It's all very flashy and new, and you have an Intrepid-class and its various shiny new consoles and such arranged before you.
I suspect
I
the
can't
lights
see.
are off for us again.
Oh, you can't see?
So, do I need to put a
That's
battery in
good,
again?
that's
I
good.
was about to call engineering and find out what I was watching.
That's my fault. Again.
Computer lights.
This is once again down to character vision.
Yeah, we didn't own a token apparently. Ah, there we
Got
are.
it.
Let me alleviate that. So that's an error I've carried forward by directly copying previous versions of your tokens. That's my fault. I apologize. Let me just quickly alleviate that as much as I can. So here I am building up how nice and shiny it is, and you're all there going, "What, Matt? We can't see a thing." Are you asking us to use our imaginations already, Matt? The budget for this show is really low. Are Paramount really giving us this little money for this? Here we are. Right, now you can see your bridge deck, I hope.
Yes.
So just
Yes.
to take us around the bridge, obviously you've got the captain and the first officer's chairs where you expect them to be. Helm is also where you expect it to be down here, which means that the holographic view screen is down here. According to Starfleet regulations, mostly out of Starfleet Medical, the old school view screens where you just had a permanent view of star fields going past was apparently very, very hypnotic and lulled people into, like, I think it's like alpha state brainwaves where they're almost like hypnotized by the star fields going past, and it was apparently too distracting. So Starfleet have issued new directives, safety protocols, that view screens are not to display anything until it's absolutely necessary, to prevent from making the crew basically fall into a hypnotized stupor whilst they should be doing their duties. So you do not have the picture of somebody's Starfield screensaver going past at all times. The view screen is only used when necessary. So, we obviously have the tactical position over here on the top left, and we have science station over here. Technically, operations, the station in charge of regulating power and divvying up the main computer's processing resources, is here. We haven't created a character for that yet because we haven't really needed to, so that position we're assuming is filled by a background cast member, but we have yet to give them a name, so we are leaving the token place empty for now. On board the bridge we have these two auxiliary consoles, as it were, and they can be configured to be pretty much anything. So in this regard, if necessary, this console can be a medical console for Dr. Sott to be present on the bridge, if Dr. Sott is needed to be present on the bridge for any reason. We will, of course, assume the Chief Medical Officer's duties keep him confined mostly to sick bay, but this is useful as a way of having Dr. Sott's token on the bridge, so that if Chris needs to, he can get at his character quickly and access his character's abilities.
Mhm.
So, everybody good with that so far?
Yep.
Excellent. And so it is that we break ourselves into what happened during the shakedown period, where you guys were getting to grips with your new vessel, and the vessel itself was being tested to see that everything is working correctly. And it was during this time that the captain displayed a somewhat overbearing perfectionism, where Captain Sobek would, at seemingly random intervals, would start running tests, simulations, and would perform surprise inspections of the various departments. He would almost always find fault with something, and would therefore recommend that the crews try harder in order that their performance levels raise. Now, for both Commander Baruva and Lieutenant Gurkow, the actual purpose behind this became very obvious very quick, and the two of them had to the two of you had to kind of stifle a knowing smile, as you can both tell what the captain's actually doing, especially Baruva, who has a specialty in team dynamics. Because very quickly, certain junior officers start gathering together in the mess halls with members from other departments and are basically having a good old whine about how tough the captain is being. They also start complaining to their senior staff officers, so naturally the engineers go to Lieutenant Tabish to start complaining that the captain has now put them on extra rotations and they need to do better. Is this fair? The security teams have been put through their paces, and so they start complaining a little bit to Lieutenant Garrow, likewise the science groups, and all that. It quickly becomes obvious to those with knowledge that the captain is forging bonds between the crewmates by giving them something to collectively bond over, i.e., how tough the captain is being. He is also, by doing this, reinforcing the command structure, because with these junior officers complaining to their department heads, the junior officers are then getting to know their department heads, and likewise, anybody with a serious complaint knows to go to the XO. And thus, after about a month's worth of shakedown time, these simulations and surprise inspections start becoming less and less frequent, and as they become less and less frequent, the captain then starts handing out what's the word I'm looking for? This happens to me a lot when I start GMing. I forget words. Words just disappear from my brain. So he starts praising people. He starts giving them little positive notes about what they've done, and starts recommending what they can do to slightly improve next time. And overall, the attitude of people, the lower ranks especially, in regards to their captain starts to soften. And this, for Commander Baruva especially, is like, man, Captain Sobek just played the crew like a violin. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he did it pretty darned well. So, this now gives you an idea as to what type of captain you've got. So, with that in mind, a note comes from Starfleet at one point that the captain takes in his ready room, and it is at that juncture that he summons all of the senior bridge crew to the briefing room. So, if I could get your characters to all please follow the captain. To do this, all you have to do is click and hold on your token and drag them to the place you want them to go. So if you can all assemble in front of the door, you can see there is a little door icon here. If you click on the door, one of you do it. There you are. You can actually see that the door opened, and you can proceed into the next area. I am, of course, going to put the captain at the head of the table. And you guys can sit yourselves in whatever empty seat that you think you would sit your character. Now, obviously, we have Chris's security chief who's going to be coming along for the ride as well. We'll put him by there. And even though she isn't a player character, she is one of the senior crews, we're going to put our helm officer kind of over here. It makes sense, of course, that the XO should be sitting next to the captain, and of course Lieutenant Gurkow, who knows the captain reasonably well, can sit next to him. So obviously, if you look, the screen is kind of divided up into little squares. This is basically the grid, and your characters pretty much fit into a square. So even if they don't line up perfectly with the seats, we can assume that people are either doing the Riker maneuver, where they sit on their seat in a funny angle, or they're sitting on the edge of the seat, or whatever. That's all fine. Okay. The captain calls you all to the briefing room. Good morning. As of 5 hours ago at Stardate 48157.1, Space Station Narendra, Starbase Narendra, sent a signal telling us that one of their runabouts with a crew of 2, the Susquehanna, had gone to investigate a strange alien signal in an area known as the Shackleton Expanse. The Susquehanna has failed to return, and Starfleet has requested that we be sent in to investigate what became of the Susquehanna. The Shackleton Expanse is currently an unknown and largely unexplored sector of space, existing to the galactic east along the borders of the Klingon and Romulan empires. It is an area known predominantly for its intense gravitational and astrological phenomena, which make it a difficult but not impossible area of space to investigate. We will be proceeding there with all due speed, in order to see if we can locate the Susquehanna and ascertain the disposition of it and its crew. Questions?
How close is it to the neutral zone?
To answer that question, I am going to send you guys a link, and I'm going to put that in Discord. It is a link to an image. This is an image of the galaxy map, basically, as far as folks who have gone to the trouble of using the various TV shows and movies to tell us where things are. Now, you'll notice that the Federation of Planets is the big blue section in the middle, and we have the Romulan Star Empire and Klingon Empires off to the right. The Shackleton Expanse, exists in the black area of unclaimed space to the right of the Romulan Star Empire and the Klingon Empire. So, if you like, you can zoom into the image. At the northeastern edge of the Klingon Empire, you should see a system or a planet called Malporkin, or Malporkin.
Yep.
And going directly north of that, there's like an inward delving patch of unclaimed space that brushes up against the Romulan and Klingon empires. That's the kind of area that the Shackleton Expanse exists within. It's currently largely unclaimed space, but the Federation and the Klingon Empire are currently making inroads into it. So that's what you know of where the Shackleton Expanse is currently sat at.
Cool.
Any other questions?
How long have they been missing?
The captain replies. Around 5 hours ago, Narendra Station launched the alert that their craft had not answered its latest hails. That was 5 hours ago. They have been gone for 7 hours in total. The last 5 of which have been unaccounted for. At last transmission, so Narendra Station have told us, the Susquehanna was tracking a strange signal of unknown origin into an area of the Shackleton Expanse. Apparently, it was near an area known as the Carina Nebula, which will be where we'll be starting our search.
Do we know anything about the nebula?
Only that, like the majority of those found within the Shackleton Expanse, it is replete with gases and anomalies that make it difficult to navigate through, and a potential hazard if taken without caution. We have been ordered to enter the nebula, find the runabout, and determine the origin and cause of the alien signal. Starfleet has also advised that Romulan and Ferengi ships have been sighted in the region, so we should exercise caution, since they may well have detected the alien signal as well. Are there any other questions? Very well. Lieutenant Tavish, obviously, with the Shackleton Expanse's reputation as a difficult region of space, the ship will be facing more than its fair share of difficulties. This means that our engines and our power systems will be given priority of function. I will be expecting the engineering department to work extra hard in ensuring that we will have full capability of the ship as we move through the Expanse.
Yes, Captain.
Also, Lieutenant Gurkow, since you will be on Science Station, I will be needing you to maintain an eye on our sensor readings. We will need as much forewarning of any such gravitational or subspace anomalies as we can get before we hit them. Also, I will be requiring you to keep an eye out for any indication of the Susquehanna's trail so that we may follow it once we have it.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Sott, obviously we do not know the disposition of the Susquehanna's crew. Therefore, your department must be on ready alert for when we eventually do find the Susquehanna, in case we are going to experience bringing on casualties.
Yes, sir.
Lieutenant Garrow, security and tactical will of course be on alert for any Romulan or Ferengi ships in the area. Plus, if the Susquehanna has suffered any kind of failure, we will likely be needing to either beam any survivors aboard, but there will of course be the expected issue that we might need to beam over to a location, either the Runabout, or wherever the Runabout has come to rest. Security personnel will therefore be required to be on ready alert. Commander Baruba, you of course will be responsible for ensuring all departments are coordinating themselves so that we may ensure smooth running of the ship.
Aye, Captain.
Very well. Report to your stations. We will set course for the Shackleton Expanse. Okay, your characters are now free to move back to their stations on board the bridge. So, let me move the guys who aren't able to move themselves. So, as you can imagine, this is going to require your characters to keep a good eye out on what's going on for when they get to the Shackleton Expanse. So, without any further ado, let's change the ambience a little bit. Some hours later, the ship arrives at the very edge of the Shackleton Expanse, having gone very, very carefully along that thin ribbon of neutral zone space between the Romulan empires and the Klingon Empire. It takes some time to navigate it, especially because there's always the threat that Romulans are on the other side, cloaked and watching to make sure nobody breaches their sovereign territory. But after a tense few hours of navigating that corridor, you eventually do come upon the outer reaches of the Shackleton Expanse. The first hurdle to overcome is an area known as the Endurance Divide. This is a nebula which forms almost like the outer shell of the Shackleton Expanse itself, and is an area of space that must be penetrated in order to get into the Expanse proper. This area counts as a Class 3 nebula. What does that mean? Well, let me get you there. I'm going to note this down on the map in front of us. Class 3 nebula. That essentially means that anything to do with engines, sensors, and weapons are being interfered with by the emissions of the nebula, and therefore the difficulty increase of any task involving those systems will be 3 greater, because you are going through, pardon me, I was just testing, a nebula that's quite, well, powerful in its effects. So, this is where we come to doing tests, or skill checks as they're known in other role-playing games. So, this first test is for your ship to navigate the outer edge of the Endurance Divide. So, we're more than likely going to require our Chief Helm Officer to make a piloting check, and it's going to be aided usually by the ship, but in this instance, not so much, because this is down to the skill of the pilot. So, because your Chief Helm Officer is a non-player character, basically any of you can take the attempt to do this, but for the ease of familiarity, I'm going to give Obi the chance to use Lieutenant Commander Lian Zhang first, just so that we can illustrate how these things work, and Obi is more familiar with it. So this is going to be a task where our Chief Helm Officer is going to need to make an unassisted engines plus con roll. So if everybody opens up their character sheet to see what I'm talking about. Obi, of course, opening up Commander Zhang's character sheet. Whenever you make a check to see whether or not you can successfully complete a task, in this case, navigating a nebula, you roll 2 20-sided dice, and the number you are looking to score on or under on each of those dice is going to be equal to the attribute we choose that this task is associated with, and the discipline. What I mean by that is, in this instance, the strain on the engines of going through the nebula means that... wait a second, that doesn't make sense. Engines plus con. The starship must make an engines plus con. So I am in fact talking a load of poop. So I'm going to say, for Lieutenant Zhang, it's going to be a control plus con check. Control.
I don't seem to have access to her sheet.
You don't?
No, I can't move her, and when I double click, I'm not getting her sheet popping up. And I can't seem to find her on the list of characters.
Alright then, in that case, that's once again down to either an oversight of mine or something changed in the interim. So I have now changed Commander Lian Zhang's permissions.
Yep, I got her now.
So that you should have access. Awesome. So everybody should have access to Lieutenant Commander Lian Zhang now, I should hope.
Yeah, I can see it.
Awesome. Cool. Little couple of teething problems here and there, but nothing that can't be handled. So, in order to try and fly the ship, fighting the resistance of the nebula, Commander Zhang is going to need to use control and con. Control representing her fine motor control and her ability to input commands into the computer, the navigation, quickly. And of course con, because that discipline represents the piloting of ships. Somebody else... let's go with Chris. We'll give this one to you.
Cool.
Chris gets to be the ship. Usually, usually when characters are performing tasks on the ship itself gets to help out. And this is also a nice illustration of how the majority of the rules work in that for this game, in that it encourages teamwork, it encourages assistance from other people. In this case, Lieutenant Commander Zhang is getting assistance from the ship itself. So, what I would like you to do, Chris, is on the right-hand column, where you've got chat messages, combat encounters, scenes, and actors.
Yeah.
If you can click on actors, hopefully, if you drill down, you can see a folder that says USS Combs and crew and ships.
Yep.
Underneath that, there should be a folder called ships.
Yep.
You've got Type 6A shuttlecraft, Type 9 shuttlecraft, USS Combs.
I haven't got the Type 9, but I have got the Combs and the Type 6.
Let's change the Type 9, so that you do have access.
Yeah, there we do. There we are, rather.
Do you have access to the Worker Bee as well? No, you don't, so let's change that. Cool.
Yeah, I've got 4 now. Type 6, Type 9, Combs, Worker Bee.
So if you click on the Combs' name, it should bring you up the Combs' character sheet.
Yep.
Awesome. So, when we do things where one character, in this case the ship, is aiding another, the the character or ship that's aiding only rolls 1 dice rather than 2 20-sided dice. That's usually the difference. So in this case, I'm going to get Chris to roll first. This is going to be, you're going to be choosing the ship's engines. So you can see next to where it says engines, there's a tick box. Very good. On the other side, there's con. Check the box for con. Now I'm going to ask you to click the yellow button that says perform task. It should bring up another window, a smaller window.
Yep.
It's got things like using focus, using determination value, blah blah blah. The bit that we want is the slide rule at the bottom that says number of dice in pool.
Yep.
I want you to move that slider from 2 down to 1.
Gotcha.
And then roll dice. Press roll dice. That's all we need from you. Thank you very much indeed. So
that's all right.
The number we were looking for was the target number was 14 because that was the what you call it? See, words just disappear from my brain. Engines had a rating of 11. Con had a rating of 3 for the ship. Add those together, you get 14. So if you roll 14 or under on a 20-sided dice, that means you get a success. If you also roll the number of the, in this case, the department, con, that's 2 successes because you've done it extra good. If you roll a 1 on a 20-sided dice, that's considered awesome, and you get 2 successes for rolling the best you can. So higher rolls is what you want to avoid, lower rolls is what you want to get.
Lovely. Off to a good start then.
So we are off to a good start. That means that the ship is helping with the navigational challenge we've got. So if we can get Obi to roll 2 dice for Commander Zhang's control and con check, please.
What's the difficulty rating?
The difficulty for this is going
number
to
of dice
be
4.
4.
4, okay.
So that's the number of successes we're looking to accomplish is 4.
And I'm assuming she's going to use either navigation or propulsion systems as a focus.
Definitely. So, what Obi's talking about there is, as we've all noticed, all our characters have got focuses, yes? So, so when you use a focus, the task that you're trying to succeed at, if it applies to one of your focuses, then you get to... Obi, remind me, is it your discipline and under? Or does it add discipline twice in order to achieve a second success?
As far as focuses go?
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't gotten...
Don't remember. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
I do believe it. If you get to use a focus, then the your double success becomes twice more likely because you're adding the discipline that you're using twice, so you've got more chance of scoring extra successes. Those kind of things we will get used to as time goes on. Basically, if you think that the situation that you're trying to succeed at has one of your focuses apply, then you can then check the box that is asking whether or not you're using one of your focuses, and therefore you increase the likelihood of scoring an extra success. So if you can justify your use of focuses, then that should ensure a bit more success. Now in this case, Lieutenant Zhang was using propulsion systems as a focus, because she was trying to use the propulsion systems to guide the ship through the nebula. As such, the con is 4, double the con to be 8, so if we'd have rolled 8 or under on one of the 2 dice she rolled, she would have scored an extra success. Unfortunately, in this case...
Can I say that
Go on.
that Commander Baruva was giving her some advice?
Yes.
So that would allow her to reroll one of them.
So yes, in this instance, as Obi is quite rightly pointing out, there are talents and abilities that your character can use. Some of them give you extra dice to roll, some of them let you re-roll dice, and that's what we're going to be counting on here, is that Baruva is helping out by using one of his... you're using Advisor, I take it?
Advisor, yeah.
So that means that Baruva, by advising Zhang, is giving her the opportunity to succeed better than she did, so giving her the ability to re-roll, which unfortunately doesn't go well for you. So the 17 becomes a 14, but we still don't have the number of successes we needed to succeed at the task. So the interference from the nebula is putting an extra strain on the engines, is making the sensors more difficult to read, and the weapons themselves the ship's weapon systems are finding themselves unable to get accurate target locks because of the interference from the nebula. The ship, therefore, due to the nature of the nebula that you're fighting your way through, the ship is having to expend extra power in order to get yourselves through the nebula. So in that case, unfortunately, in this instance, you failed to acquire the requisite number of successes to beat the task. Now, if you look down at the bottom right of the map, you should see two little areas, one called momentum, one called threat. If at any point you score more successes than are needed, let me use proper diction here. If you score more successes than are needed, you can put any of those extra successes into a pool that everybody has access to. You can use things like buy more dice, or try and use new and novel ways of performing extra actions, or such things as that. The momentum pool is for everybody on the team to use, and you can have a maximum of 6 in your momentum pool. Likewise, I as the DM, or GM rather I should say, I have a threat pool, which is similar to your momentum pool, but mine doesn't refill. I can use my pool of threats to make things more challenging for you, and I can use it to manipulate chance and whatnot. I can make things complicated by using threat. Now, you do have the option, if you fail at a task, sometimes, of succeeding at cost. And what this means is, you do succeed at your task, but you award me 1 extra point of threat that I can use to make life difficult for you later on. So I'm going to put this as an option to the group. Do you want to succeed at cost, or are you happy to live with the consequences of the failure in this specific task? What do you think?
You said the failure was we used more power than we should have?
Yes, so the engines will be straining to put in the power necessary to move through the nebula.
I'm kind of happy to suck this one up, in case something worse happens later.
Okay. Obi, what do you think?
I think that type of cost adds more opportunity for other players to do things, so I'm happy with that.
Dave and Connie, you alright with accepting the consequence?
Indeed.
Excellent. Yep. Okay, so down in engineering, Lieutenant Tavish gets a couple of warning alerts that the ship is struggling to maintain its speed. The ship starts to judder and shake just a little bit. So even though those watching the stream can only see me, I would like to ask my players to join me in doing the Star Trek shake. In your seat, just to represent the ship shaking. Do the Star Trek jiggle in your seat. There you go. as the inertial dampers are having a hard time trying to... Or you can shake your cursor as well to represent it. To represent the ship having a bit of a hard time, the inertial dampers having a hard time keeping up with the amount of juddering and shaking that's going on. So, Chris, do you still have the character sheet for the Combs open?
No, but I can get it. Sorry,
Cool.
bear me a second.
That's fine. I think in this case we'll
There it
defer
is.
to
Got
our
it.
chief engineer to also do this. Dave, do you want to open up the character sheet for the Combs?
Yeah, okay. I've already got it up.
Excellent. Because you're needing to draw extra power from the core, can I get you to, if you can see, the ship has 2 ratings, shields and power. Power is underneath
Yes,
the
yeah,
icon
shield and power,
image.
yeah.
Knock power down by 3, if you can, please.
1, 2, and 3. Yeah.
So extra power is being diverted from the warp core in order to try and stabilize the ship and keep it running through the nebula. Okay. So this is the amount of power needed to successfully deflect heavy particles from the path of the ship and to maintain the stable warp field inside such a quickly changing gravimetric environment. Luckily for you, you do have enough power to get through here for the moment. So eventually, you come through the endurance divide, and everybody breathes a bit of a sigh of relief. That, sadly, was only the first test that you have to endure going through the Shackleton Expanse. The next part is an effect that you were given warning about, those of you who dared to look at the records currently available to Starfleet in regards to the Shackleton Expanse. There is an odd gravimetric anomaly encountered throughout parts of the Expanse, which they call the washboard effect. It consists of wave after wave of gravitational and subspace distortions that make navigation difficult, and there's been the primary reason, apparently, that the Expanse has been so ill-explored. So, we are now going to give you another trait to represent this specific part. Now, I'm going to be a bit more lenient. The washboard effect for the region of space that you're going to, specific to the fact that you are aiming for the Carina Nebula, has a washboard rating of 2. So, let me see. This represents the number of extra power that has to be used by the ship in order to keep a stable warp field as you pass through the waves of gravitational distortion. It's called the washboard essentially because if you're trying to proceed through high warp, you suddenly bump to a stop and then surge and accelerate and then bump to a stop and then surge and accelerate as you basically get jolted back and forth in your seats as the ship is basically going over what feels like speed bumps in the road. The amount of power needed to keep this up means that the ship is having to expend extra in order to do that. So for this one, let's give Connie a chance to make some changes to the ship. Connie, can you find the Holmes's character sheet for me, please?
Yep.
Where it says power, can you knock it down by an extra 2, please?
2.
There we are. So it's all happening in real time. And I'm going to put an extra directive here. Of the Susquehanna. So, if you ever needed to check what your mission directives were, you can see them on the ship under mission directives. Obviously, there is one mission directive that is always present. Obey the Prime Directive. But for this specific mission, you have discovered the condition and whereabouts of the Susquehanna. That would be complete your mission today, or for this episode at the very least. So, you do, however, because you have a vessel with the improved warp drive talent, you do have the ability to see if your increased efficiency in your warp field can gain you some of that power back. So, who hasn't rolled anything yet? That would be Dave, Connie, and Chris, really, wouldn't it? This should really apply to the chief engineer because it's the engineer's job to look after the warp core. So, Dave, whenever the ship spends power to go through this anomaly, I want you to roll a 6-sided dice, a d6 for me. Now, you can do that by, if you see in the right-hand column, where you've got all these things telling you the results of your rolls, there's a bit underneath a drop-down list that currently says public roll. There's an area that you can type stuff into, and underneath that it's got a load of shapes. If you press the square shape, it'll automatically fill in /R space 1d6.
Yep.
Then press the roll button near that, and it will roll that 1d6, that one 6-sided dice. Ooh, now, you got a 6, but in the Star Trek Adventures, that's called a challenge dice. That challenge dice, instead of rolling a 6, it rolled a 1, but with an effect. The effect, in this case, gains us 1 point of power back because of your improved warp drive. So, if somebody's got the ship's character sheet up, let's make it Obi's turn. Obi, feel free to gift 1 power back to the ship because of its improved warp drive. Do you know where to find it? Obi, you good?
Yep, I'm getting there. So, where's their power located at on the sheet?
So, if you look where the icon for the ship itself is, above it says shields, underneath it it's got power. So right in the middle of the character sheet. There you go. So you can expect to come back and forth to the ship sheet every now and then, depending on the type of mission that we're using, especially if we're using the ship systems to assist with your tasks. Folks will be coming back and forth to the ship character sheet. So it's nice to get acquainted with it, which is the whole purpose of this. So, the ship's more efficient warp core means that some of the power output is able to be recovered. But nonetheless, traveling over the washboard triplets has been a bit of a bumpy ride. However, you eventually do come out the other side. So, passing into the Carina Nebula itself, you come into an area of space not exactly replete with ion storms and the like, but it's not exactly clear sailing either. For the most part, the ship itself is currently adequately protected with its deflector shield against any of the ion storm strikes going on outside of itself. But you have now successfully reached the Carina Nebula. So, it's at this juncture that we should probably get our Chief Science Officer to use sensors to have a scan around to find if you can see if you can find any trace of the Susquehanna. So in this case, Connie, I'm going to be asking you to access your character sheet.
Yeah.
You are going to be ticking the control attribute And on the other side, I'm going to be asking you to take the science discipline. Now, before you roll that, I'm going to ask for somebody to be the ship. Let's see. Chris rolled as the ship last time. We just had Dave roll to see if we can get the... So basically, Obi, if you could be the ship for us this time, aiding the sensor scan.
Okay.
So as far
Sensors.
Yep, sensors, and we'll go with science. No, sensors and security, please.
Okay.
But you do have advanced sensor suites on board your ship, so the difficulty of this task is going to be reduced because your ship is all the new and all the awesome. It reduces the difficulty by 1. So taking that in note, can I get Obi to roll 1 dice for the ship aiding in the Chief Science Officer's attempt? This is going to be difficulty 1 as a result of the advanced sensor suite. Excellent, you've got 1 success already. So Connie, if I can get you to press the yellow perform task button, another little window will have come up. And in this case, none of your focuses actually apply because, well, Darbo doesn't apply here. You don't need to know the interstellar law to be able to scan a nebula. And hand-to-hand combat, unless you want to punch the console into submission, doesn't apply here either. But that's fine. For now, if you can just press the roll dice button because you want 2 dice. Which is the default, so just press the roll dice and we'll see what comes up. Ooh, hello! Now then, you remember I noted earlier that when you roll a 20-sided dice, if you roll a 1, that equals 2 successes. It's like, not only is it succeeding, it's succeeding very, very well. On the flip side, rolling a 20 is a possible complication that could cause trouble. Now,
It's an exploding console, is it?
Not exactly exploding console, although I could do that. In fact...
Uh-oh.
No, I'm not going to do that. That's a bit cliched at this particular point. You're just scanning the area, trying to see if you can find the Susquehanna's trail. I said it was difficulty 2 because you had enhanced sensor suites, advanced sensor suites. You have actually succeeded, but you've succeeded with a complication. So I'm going to bank that in my brain for use later. And I'll let you stew over whether or not I'm going to use it now or later. All I can say is, for those of you who are watching the stream right now, this is my best Mr. Burns face. But for those of you who are not watching the stream, maybe my players, just imagine a villain twirling his moustache. That's me. So, Lieutenant Gurkow is using the ship's sensors to try and scan the area of space, and as you can imagine, with all the ion storm going on around in the area, it's proving rather difficult. But you do find ionic resonance traces. Thank you very much, Obi. For those of you watching the stream who can't see the Discord channel, Obi just posted Dick Dastardly twirling his moustache. Thank you, Obi. I can only aspire to be as dastardly as Dick Dastardly, but I'm going to give it a good old go. So Neshlel does pick up traces of what she believes is a small craft's warp trail. And it is heading off in a specific direction. So, I'm assuming that you are letting the rest of your crew know that you have found what you believe to be a ship's warp trail.
Indeed.
So,
Captain,
yep.
we have found the ship's warp trail in this direction.
This brings me to another little note that I feel I should bring up, especially to those guys who have not done role-playing games before. I personally don't enforce any one playing style over another. Some people, like myself, are all good for trying out different voices, especially because I'm the GM and I control and I voice many different characters over the course of your journeys. Therefore, I try and add a bit of variance and try and use voices and accents where I can. If you think that your character has an accent and you want to try it, you are perfectly allowed to do that. If you, however, are either not confident enough or do not have the talent to do different voices, don't worry about it. Use your normal voice. If you are also one of those who are new to it and a bit self-conscious about the whole idea of role-playing games, you can also go the more narrative route and say, my character says this. I am fine with whatever role-playing style you are comfortable with. So I do not force people to go full immersion and, you know, come to the sessions dressed in Starfleet uniforms and I demand people talk as their characters at all times. Yeah. Some people do that. Some people try and promote that as a means of keeping everybody immersed. I'm happy with whatever method makes you comfortable. So you can either do what Connie did and speak it aloud as if you were the character. You can try a voice if you want to try a voice, or you can narrate what your character says and does. I'm fine with either. Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Excellent. Especially to those who are new to the hobby, I know sometimes people can feel self-conscious about it. I remember one of my previous play sessions where I introduced some other new players to the hobby, and a more experienced player jumped right into doing what I can kindly call an Irish accent, but any actual Irish people next to him would have been somewhat offended by it, possibly. He butchered the Irish accent quite nicely, but it was an indication of he wanted to try a voice, and we were all good with it. And one of the newer players was like, what, we can do voices too? Yeah, absolutely. If you're comfortable with that, try it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and you can try a different accent or no accent at all later on. So, sorry for breaking the immersion a little bit there, but it was a point that I really felt I wanted to make sure that everybody's comfortable with that. So, moving on. Lieutenant Gurkow has brought it to the attention of all that there is a warp trail out there. Are we able to determine the course of the warp trail, Lieutenant? And Lieutenant Gurkow believes that she can, yes.
Aye, sir.
So, uploading this course heading to Helm means that the ship now has a possible destination in mind. So, I am going to ask, let me see. Who hasn't rolled anything much yet? Chris and Dave, let's get you to do a little bit of rolling so that you get a bit more familiar with it.
Sure.
Chris, can I get you to roll Lieutenant Commander Lian Zhang as she attempts to plot a course using navigation? Dave, can I get you to be the Combs assisting? So first thing I'm going to want is, Dave, if you could open up the character sheet for the USS Combs. And I'm going to need you to check the box for, let me see, sensors, and check the box for con on departments, please. And press the perform task button, which should bring up a secondary window. At the very bottom, there's a slide rule for the number of dice. Slide it down from 2 to 1, because the ship is assisting and is not the primary individual doing the task. Once you've done that, press the perform task button, give it a roll. Alright, so we got 1 success because we rolled underneath con. We rolled exactly on the ship's con. So we got exactly what we needed there. This was going to be difficulty... Now, it was going to be difficulty 1, but because you rolled a complication, I'm going to make it difficulty 2. So, Chris, I'm going to ask you to... for Lieutenant Lian Zhang, I'm going to ask you to check the box next to Reason attribute.
Yep.
As she's using her smarts to try and calculate a course. Keep the Discipline checkbox next to Con.
Uh-huh.
Click the yellow Perform Task button, which should bring up the extra little window.
Gotcha.
Now, there is a tick box at the top. It says using focus. We are using Lian Zhang's navigation focus. So make sure you check that box for using focus.
Yep.
The number of dice is 2, so just click the yellow roll dice button.
Uh-huh.
We should roll some dice.
Oh dear.
Ho ho! My word, the complications are coming thick and fast.
I was going to interject and maybe Veruva can help out again. Maybe that'll save us from that complication.
If you want Baruba to also be helping out, then can I get you to give me a presence and command assist check, please, then?
Is that me? Sorry.
No, that's for Obi.
Okay, sorry.
So, Obi, if you could open up your character sheet, check presence and command, perform task, remember to roll only 1 dice, but you can also be using, I suppose, Starfleet protocols as a focus for this?
Yeah, that works.
So give it a roll. No successes, but because Baruva is assisting, that means that we can once again use Baruva's advisor talent to re-roll her d20, which means you can probably want to re-roll that 20-sided die, that one that rolled on a 20. So, Chris, underneath the check that says you got 1 success, but there was a complication.
Oh yeah.
It said re-roll results.
Uh-huh.
Click that. It brings up that little window once again. Remember to check using focus, but put the slide rule down to just 1 dice. We're only re-rolling 1 dice, and it's going to be that 20.
Cool.
Click the roll, and we'll see what we get. Oh no!
All these years in Starfleet Academy.
Wow, this is going well so far. Okay. What happens?
Has anybody seen a Q somewhere, maybe?
That might be me. If there is any Q messing with the crew at the moment, it's probably going to be me. Oh dear. Right, so the Combs is not having a good time of things. So it turns out that the ionic disturbance in the nebula from the ion storms going around has some screwed up the navigational sensors, and it means that as the Combs helm officer plots a course to go carry on through the nebula following the warp trail, it unfortunately hits a pocket of basically heavy ion discharge. Everybody give me the Star Trek bridge shake as we rock from side to side. a lightning strike from the, essentially a lightning strike from the ion storm strikes the vessel, causing a power surge to go through the systems. Dave, can I get you to open up the ship's character sheet? I'm going to ask you to remove 1 point of power from the ship, but I am also going to inflict 1 breach on the engines as the primary power core takes a hit from the ionic discharge. Now, anybody who's currently looking at your ship's character sheet will notice that along the systems that you've got a rating. So communications has got a rating of 10, computers has got a rating of 11, blurdy blur. There is another column next to each of those systems, the column called breach. When your ship takes damage, it can suffer 1 or more breaches to individual systems. This means that an individual system has been hit and damaged in some fashion. In this case, engines has now taken a breach. And this is something that will impose some kind of condition upon the ship, which of course the engineers will have to see to. Breach damage can only be repaired at a starbase or other suitable facility. If your ship accumulates enough breaches in a system equal to its scale, in this case 4, let's just say you are in trouble. So for the moment, we have taken a breach in the engineering section. So that means that whenever the engine system suffers 1 or more breaches, it disrupts the functions temporarily. The ship loses 2 power. So Dave, knocked that power down by an extra 1. Thank you. Further, the internal systems officer, which would be chief engineer, until your chief engineer tries to restore that system, any and all tasks that use the ship's engines or have a power requirement increase in difficulty and complication range by 1. So, the ship has a damage report. Engine impact damage. So those of you who are currently looking at the character sheet for the ship, if you scroll down to the bottom portion of the ship's character sheet, there is an area, so there's damage report. You have now suffered engine impact damage. However, the ship does eventually come out of that portion of the nebula, and the storms quiet a good little bit. Oops-a-daisy. Let me put this back. But let me turn off some of these. Okay. So the ship eventually gets through. So what we're going to need to do is our chief engineer is going to have to perform a restore action to the ship systems, so that the anyone trying to use the ship's power or the ship's engines are going to find it more difficult. So, Dave, this is where engineering gets to shine. If I can get you to make a repair action using, let's see, daring and engineering, please. This will be using your character's focus of power systems. So when you click the yellow perform task button, remember to check the using focus button. Now, everybody is currently aware that their characters also have determination. You've got 3 lots of determination, in fact. This might be a good time to illustrate what determination does. Now, in order to do this, we can look at your chief engineer's character sheet, and we can see that she's got the value of cool in a crisis, and this would certainly count as a crisis. So the ship has been hit by a massive electrical discharge that's put out some of the systems, damaged or overloaded certain EPS conduits. Things down in engineering are currently a bit mad, as there's consoles that are sparking, there is steam being jetted from coolant systems. The engineers, a lot of them, like most of the crew, are very new out of Starfleet Academy. Somebody needs to be the cool head in the crisis, and that can be the chief engineer, Lieutenant Tavish. So, if Chris, sorry, I'm going to take a point of momentum away from me for getting people's names wrong. Dave, if you can lower your character's number of determination by 1, to represent your character using your value in a crisis. When you've got the little window up that asks how many dice you're using, whether or not you're using a focus, which you are, also check the box for using determination/value. You with me?
Yep.
Cool. When you're ready, roll dice. Yes.
Does my talents come into this?
Let's have a look.
I'm looking at giving it all she's got.
Okay, let's read that. Giving it all she's got! You can keep things running on a fraction of its normal power and always seem to be able to squeeze just a little more power out of the reserves. Whenever someone attempts a task with a power requirement aboard your ship, while you are aboard, you roll a 1 challenge dice. At this point in time, no one is trying to use the power reserve, so it's not so much that one. But let me see. What might apply is Miracle Worker, but you're not using an extended task, so that doesn't necessarily apply either.
Nor does I know my ship.
Because you know what the technical problem is. Yep. Resolute increases your stealth. So none of your talents really apply here, no, but it's useful to keep an eye on those for some later point, definitely.
Okay.
So that was a good question. No, it seems that none, according to the text in each of your talents, they do not apply to this current situation, because all you're doing is, I say all, what you're doing is currently repairing to power system damage as a result of a surge. So you know what's wrong. You're trying to get people to, your people now to repair that damage. So,
what complication?
There is not a complication, so don't worry about that one. Just leave that as is. You're using focus, using determination, rolling 2 dice. The ship cannot help you in this manner, so it's all down to our chief engineer and to her raw talents. 3 successes, so if everyone can see, by using a point of determination, Dave essentially bought an extra dice, and it automatically rolls a 1, which netted you 2 successes immediately. He also rolled a 4 and an 8, so that's 5 successes altogether. That was loads. In my mind, the damage was a task 2 difficulty, so Dave has actually scored 3 successes above what was needed, so your momentum pool now gains 3 points. Well done to our chief engineer.
There is going to be a message from Tavish to our con officer.
Commander Zhang, yes?
Commander Zhang going, what are you doing? Are you just out of Starfleet? I could fly this ship with my eyes closed better than you.
Ooh. Now, I'm assuming that was a private message to our chief.
Yes, it was.
Yep,
Yeah.
okay then.
He's yelling it across the bridge.
Well, this is it. Like I said with your character, Chris, Dr. Sott, we can assume that Dr. Sott is probably present in sickbay. Likewise, unless directly called to the bridge, we can assume that Lieutenant Tavish, Chief Engineer, is down in engineering. On the bridge, if the Chief Engineer wanted to get to the bridge, the remote engineering console is up here at the back of the bridge. So that's why I've put Tavish there, so that Dave can easily access his character sheet. If Tavish is indeed on the bridge, then yes, there is the sound of furious pounding on the console to type in a message that is quickly then sent to the helm officer.
Oh no, she's definitely down in engineering.
I was going to say, probably definitely down in engineering. So, yes, those who are looking, probably Commander Baruva, notice the helm officer look down as her attention is brought to a flashing message icon, and when she clicks on it, she leans down to read it, and then just kind of, her body language is basically, come on. But she doesn't actively voice any complaint.
Just goes and stands in the corner for a bit.
She's going to pace in front of the helm console to calm down. The captain just arches a Vulcan eyebrow. All right. Eventually, the ship passes out of the turbulent ion storm, and you do manage to relocate the warp trail that indicates a warp-capable ship did pass this direction. And eventually, you start tracking it in the direction of a small star system. According to your navigational logs, this star system has been identified as Seku and has one M-class planet, the sixth planet in the system, no less. It's not that hospitable. From this distance, it reads as mostly barren of vegetation. Seems to be seismically active. A lot of volcanoes are active currently on the planet's surface, and therefore certain parts of the planet's surface are shrouded in volcanic cloud spewing ash. However, sensors are having a problem with penetrating too far into the atmosphere. There's some kind of interference going on. But sensors can definitely confirm the presence of a strange transmission which you are currently unable to decipher, but is currently issuing from the sixth planet. So, what would you like to do? I would...
Do we have a communications officer?
You can and do, and like I said with the operations officer, for the moment, they can be considered an extra with no actual lines, or maybe one line, until you actually feel the need to dip into your pool of supporting characters. Unless, of course, you do want to dip into your pool of supporting characters now and establish your communications officer.
Well, I mean, maybe they can analyze that signal for language or something to that effect.
Okay, that sounds like a relatively simple task, not something that would require any kind of task roll. So I am just going to indicate that your communications officer does indeed start tapping in commands and cycles through all known communication decryption methods in order to try and ascertain if they can get a handle on what the transmission might be. Unfortunately, the power of the transmission is pretty substantial, and all current known methods of interpreting or decrypting a method are not a transmission are not working to decipher what this could be. It's something that isn't in any of the Federation records.
So then Commander Baruva will say, Lieutenant Tavish, can you analyze the signal for data? It seems to be, it has a lot of power. So maybe he'll say something to that effect. Maybe it contains data if it takes up that much power or contains that much power.
So yes, that much power suggests possibly a very dense information transmission. So yeah, if our chief engineer would like to give it a good bash, this is probably a good excuse for the chief science officer to also assist with such an analysis. And also a good use for the ship to assist. This could be one of those good moments where we get as many people as we can to assist on a specific task. So what we can do is, since Commander Baruva asked for our chief engineer to give the transmission a once-over, we will assume that Lieutenant Tavish is the primary task roller for this. So Lieutenant Tavish will be rolling 2 dice. Because Commander Baruva issued the recommendation, the commander can also assist using...
Actually, I'd like to, maybe this is a good place for the plan of action talent to come in.
Ooh.
Or I'm telling them to do stuff and saying, here's the strategy we want to use. And then if they succeed, we get 2 more momentum.
Aha, very good. Okay then, so Baruva once again using presence and command to issue the directive. Tavish will probably be doing... Tavish will probably be using reason and engineering to look at the transmission that way. If we're getting, which I think is a good idea, getting Lieutenant Gurkow to assist using, because she's head of science, she could probably go with using insight and science, rolling 1 dice to assist this, and Chris could probably be the ship, using communications and science for the ship, I think. So Connie, you're rolling 1 dice. None of your focuses really apply, so you don't have to check any of the boxes there. Chris, you're just using the ship, so none of the check boxes apply to you. You're only using 1 dice because the ship is assisting. Obi, you're assisting as well, so you're using only one dice.
Do a presence command.
Yeah, please.
Maybe with team dynamics. In there.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you can use your focus. And we're going to have, of course, Dave. You're using reason and engineering. You're rolling 2. None of Tavish's focuses really apply here. But I'll allow warp field dynamics to come in as a focus here. So, Dave, when it comes your turn to roll 2 dice, remember to check the box for focus. So we've got Obi has rolled as Baruva. Can I get Connie to roll as Gurkow? Oh no!
Uh-oh.
The complications are coming thick and fast! Can I get Chris to roll as the ship?
Sure. Here comes the exploding warp core.
Oh, that was close! And can I finally get Dave to roll 2 dice as Lieutenant Tavish? Oh, it's making me all hot under the collar, this. Alright, so we amassed 1 success overall. And a complication. Okay. Alright, so what happens is, in order to try and analyze the transmission coming from the planet, with Commander Baruva getting everybody to work together, Tavish and Gurkow open up the communication array and give it a bit of extra juice and a bit of extra processing power from the main computer in order to try and analyze it to see if there is indeed data being transmitted through this medium. And as soon as you open up the communication, the communication buffers to accept the transmission, there is this horrible high-pitched screech that just makes everybody grab their ears as the as the communication buffer basically overloads with the sheer amount of data that's being asked to process. Yeah, so I am going to say that even though technically the communication system doesn't suffer a breach, the communication system is going to suffer a technical glitch that will make the communications harder to use until that's fixed. But basically, in trying to understand, trying to pull apart the transmission and in an attempt to see what it's made of, the communication command and control system basically goes, "Oh my god, there's so much of it, I don't know what to do!" It's like if you gave a computer that has only got so much processing power suddenly was given the ability to access a hard drive of much greater capacity than its operating system was made to cope with. It just sits there and just doesn't know what to do with itself. So for the moment, the Combs' communication system is having trouble. But you still have got the planet turning below you, though at the moment, obviously, the nature of this transmission is still unknown to you. So with that avenue of investigation, well, not exactly done, but certainly tried, what would you like to do next?
Captain, I suggest a landing party onto the planet.
Okie dokie. I am going to get an alert issued from the console of your Chief Tactical Officer. Where now that the ship is drawing into orbit over the sixth planet in order to get ready to, as Gurkau suggested, get a landing party together. Now that you're closer to the planet and starting to draw in with an eye towards achieving orbit around the planet, Lieutenant Garrow notes that there are some odd readings in the planet's upper ionosphere. It seems to match the ion trail of an impulse engine, but there are also an unusual amount of tachyon particles in an area above the planet, just over its surface.
Tachyon is a Romulan, right?
Tachyons, yes. For anybody who wants to look up the tachyons, they are usually the kind of particles found when somebody activates a cloaking device. So with that knowledge in hand, what would you like to do now?
Yellow alert.
Okay. Ship is put onto ready alert status. Everyone goes to their ready stations.
I'll have Lieutenant Gurkau scan for, like if there's like a specially localized area, maybe where the...
Okay.
Are there like other signs of maybe a cloaked ship?
Yep.
It's cloaked this way, or these things are happening, and that usually is associated with like a Klingon or a Romulan or something like that.
Yep. Alrighty then. In that case, let's once again have Lieutenant Gurkau as our primary, because she's being asked to perform this task. I am going to have us use Lieutenant Garrow, our Chief of Security, as somebody helping out with this. Once again, Baruva can also assist on this because he is the one issuing the recommended course of action. And because, let's face it, he's got the ability to get you to re-roll these 20s that keep popping up. And the ship will also be a good one to assist with this. So, let me see. Let's get...
I'm going to throw the Starfleet protocols into this one.
Yeah, sure. So if we're getting Connie to roll 2 dice, Obi to roll 1. So there's Baruba's 1. 1 success already, cool. Let me see. Now, Chris hasn't had an awful lot of luck so far with rolls. So are we going to let him near the ship or the security officer? Do we think? Well,
let
because
him
it's...
near the security officer.
What was that, sorry, Dave?
Let him near the security officer.
Less chance of the ship going kaboom, more chance of him accidentally shooting somebody. Okay.
Pulse spread of photon torpedoes coming right up.
Awesome.
All right then. So, Chris, I'm gonna hopefully you can access basically Idris Elba over here, and Dave gets to access the Combs. Since we are scanning, I'm going to ask the Combs to give me sensors and security this time, because you are scanning for active adversaries. We've already had Obi's 1 roll, so if I can get Dave to roll for the Combs. As far as Lieutenant Garrow goes, can I get control and security for Lieutenant Garrow?
Yep.
None of the focuses really apply, unless you count survival. Let's go with survival, because this is becoming a bit of a hairy situation if there are Romulans or Klingons nearby. So let's allow the survival, but you still only roll 1 dice for Lieutenant Garrow. 1 success. We've got 2 so far, which was what I was aiming for, so whatever Lieutenant Gurkow rolls now is gravy on the boat.
We shall see.
So, let me see. You are rolling control and science, please, to operate sensors. You don't have any focuses that apply, so, yeah. Basically just using your natural talent.
Right, 2 dice.
Yes, please. No focuses, and, oh, there we go. Very nice.
Finally.
Yeah.
So then we also get the 2 more momentum with the plan of action. So that finally worked.
Yes. So you rolled 3 successes with 1 over, so you gain 3 extra. There we are. So that should be a full pool of momentum. Now, sorry, Obi, you were about to say something there.
Yeah, what's our momentum at? Because we got 2 from plan of action, and then how many from other stuff?
So you earned 3 basically from that last task because of plan of action. So your momentum pool is up to max.
So that 6 is max?
6 is max.
Okay.
Yep. So this should now give you some incentive to start looking to spend momentum. You can spend momentum to add extra dice. Now, in this last attempt, because we used Obi and Dave and Chris and Connie, all using either a different character or the ship, you are allowed a maximum of 5 dice to attempt a task. So 2 from Connie, and then 1 from everybody else, equated to 5. If at any point you are not using the maximum amount of people to help, like, say, for instance, when Lieutenant Tabish was trying to repair the damage to the power system, instead of burning instead of burning a point of determination in order to gain a dice that rolled a 1, you can instead buy extra dice to roll by spending momentum. You can spend 1 momentum to add 1 dice, but after that the cost of buying an extra dice goes up by 1. So if you wanted to buy 2 dice, it would cost you 3. 1 for the first one, 2 for the second dice. If you wanted to add 3 extra dice, that would cost you the whole pool of 6, because it costed 1 for the first dice you added, 2 momentum for the second dice you added, 3 momentum for the third and final dice that you added. Clear as mud? Or do I need to go over that again? Now, I will say this. Most folks that I've played with don't tend to go the whole hog and buy all the dice. It's usually a case of someone helps, the computer's assisting, but just to make sure somebody also wants to buy an extra dice by using a point of momentum from the pool. And then somebody will ask, is it alright with everybody if I use a point of momentum? And then you can either yay or nay it, of course. So the momentum pool is there for you to use to buy extra dice, or to try and perform extra minor actions with, or to do other things that will become more apparent as we go on. So now that you have a full momentum pool, it is a pool that you can dip into to buy extra dice to use on tasks if you want.
So what did our successes gain us? Because we were trying to figure out if there was like a ship nearby, and maybe what type of ship.
Scanning the area specific to the tachyon emanations, you gain a picture that you also gain. Hang on, let me start that again. Scanning the area where the tachyon emissions were detected, you also detect strong ionic emanations that seem to come from a Federation-built impulse drive, but the sheer amount of ionic particles indicate that the impulse drive was damaged. And you also detect charged particles in the atmosphere that suggest weapons fire. The number of successes you've got, especially because of plan of action, you are able to determine that the energy signature of the charged particles indicate that Romulan disruptors were fired. And you're also detecting traces of tritanium and deuterium in the upper atmosphere, indicative of a small Federation-made craft basically having pieces of it blown off. So, yes, go on.
We haven't actually scanned for any life signs yet. That might be a good time. In case
because that's basically telling us that the shuttlecraft was probably here. It probably got shot, engaged in battle with some Romulans who shot it, and then it went down to the surface in like a crash landing state type thing.
I will throw you this one for free because I'm feeling generous. And because you did so well with that specific task. You also detect the ionic traces from the malfunctioning impulse drive. Seems to track that if it's the Susquehanna, which is a Federation runabout, it was hit badly enough that it started to descend. It was caught in the planet's gravitational pull and started making an uncontrolled descent. With paying close attention to the fact that you detected Romulan disruptors and tachyons indicative of a cloaking device, you also detect ionic traces indicative of a second ship's impulse drive. And this second ship, likely a Romulan ship at this point, seemed to go after the damaged Federation ship. There's no evidence of any more debris in the upper atmosphere to suggest Romulan ship damage, but there's definitely some to suggest the Susquehanna, again a Danube-class runabout, was damaged and went down. So, with that, you want to scan for life forms. That's cool. Let's try and use the momentum pool this time. So, Connie, once again, using the... That's because you are the main sensor operator. If I can get you to give me another control and science, but this time we're going to spend a point of momentum. I'm going to do it for you this time. I'm going to assume you are spending a point of momentum to buy an extra dice, because at this point you really, really want to find out if there are life signs on the planet so that you can find if anybody survived the crash of the Susquehanna.
Can I throw in an advisor, too?
Absolutely, which
Just
means
in
we're going to
case.
need Baruva to, again, roll presence and command as an assist. And we're going to ask for Dave this time to assist as the Combs, because I'm still not sure we want to let Chris near the dice again quite yet. Hasn't had a chance to cool down.
Would Starfleet protocols apply to this?
Yeah, because you've now determined that the Susquehanna may have suffered an attack. Protocols suggest that you now, being on ready alert, scan for life forms to see. Oh my god! You might want to scan in this direction, Lieutenant. You sure, Commander?
Just trust me. It's fine.
The other side of the planet,
this
Commander?
is my first time as a Starfleet officer, or in Starfleet in general, this commission, but you can trust me. I have experience in relatable areas.
If I can get Dave to roll as the Combs, and you're going to be using sensors and security. No, sensors and medicine this time. You're scanning for life forms. Feel free to somebody do the Data Doing the Life Forms song from Star Trek Generations, if you really need to. Connie, you are going to be rolling 3 dice, because one was bought with momentum. So everyone else is using 1, so we've already got those 2. And you rolled 3 dice, but only 1 success. But that's fine. 1 success was all that was needed. You have suffered a complication. Oh. Okay.
Oh dear.
No, it wasn't your fault this time, so it's fine. The character assisted may re-roll 1d20, but unfortunately it was OB's dice that rolled the 20, so hummity hum. Okay, let me think. 1 success. You aren't able to find any sign of life down on the planet because there is an unusually high amount of electromagnetic interference on the planet, which is making it very difficult to detect much. But with that 1 success, you do get what seems to be notice as the your console gives you a little alert that it is picking up the presence of a functioning Federation Starfleet comm badge, 2 of them, on the planet below. You've only, due to the interference, however, you've only got a rough estimation as to where that is. The interference is making it a bit difficult to narrow it down to a precise location. You've only got basically a grid square reference, and the sensors are saying it's detecting Federation Starfleet comm badges somewhere in this area here. So it gives you a rough estimation as to where these comm badge signals might be coming from.
I would say we would want to try to maybe connect to those somehow. Maybe send out like a wideband hail or something to that effect.
Okay. No problem. In that case, I'm going to assume that the communications officer sends a hail. And what you get in response is...
Lieutenant Gurko, can you clean that up?
Do it.
So, Gurkow can try and clean it up, but all the static interference appears to be coming from the strange electromagnetic interference that you're getting from the planet. So
Is it safe for transporters?
That's a very good question. Your chief science officer and your chief engineer would very much suck the air in over their teeth at the prospect of trying to beam through that interference, unless you wanted to end up in lots of different places simultaneously.
All right, then we want to get a.
Go on, Connie.
A shuttle down then. Landing party, bring some.
Yeah, that's what the commander would suggest. And we'd want to take some pattern enhancers.
The Captain Sobek nods at this. This seems to be a logical course of action. Number 1, put together your away team. It looks like you're going to need to take a shuttle down to the surface.
Aye, sir. All right. Dr. Sott, Lieutenant Garrow,
Yep.
and Lieutenant Gurkow.
Might I also suggest, Commander, that you take our chief engineer with you? I might want to keep our chief helm officer up here with us. However, I have it under authority that Lieutenant Tavish is a respectable shuttle pilot. And because of the interference you will encounter down on the planet, you may need Lieutenant Tavish's expertise in trying to get off planet once again.
And who knows what condition their shuttle is in. Maybe it's serviceable.
Exactly.
Aye,
All right,
Captain.
then. So, basically, we have all our major characters coming together in order to land on the surface. Now, I am going to... Let me see. Now, obviously, you have got 2 shuttles on board of the Combs. One is a Type 9, which currently only sits about 2 people, so unless you want to cram everybody into the same space and be all kind of standing shoulder to shoulder, the best idea is probably to take a Type 6. Or Type 7, as I've got the schematics for here, so... I'm just going to shunt us very quickly over into a shuttlecraft. So, Lieutenant Tavish, you are called upon by the captain and the XO to basically pilot the shuttle onto the surface of Seku 6.
I can help with the piloting as well. I've got pretty good... What would it be? Control on con?
It's con, yeah. So the higher your con, the more familiar you are with piloting craft of all sorts.
I've got high daring and almost high con. So if we wanna Leroy Jenkins it, I'm your man.
Well, as I'm sure Lieutenant Tavish will be happy to tell you, she's got expertise in shuttle racing. Isn't that right, Dave?
Yes, she has.
So, safety protocols might be an issue. But you want to get down there quickly, right?
Yeah.
So that's what's going to happen. Alright then, so this is going to be an instance of us using the shuttle to get down. Now, let me take away the ship ambience. And basically push this down. The ride down to the planet is somewhat, how shall we say, uneventful, but rapid. As Lieutenant Tavish basically puts the pedal to the metaphorical metal. The inertial dampers have an interesting time trying to keep up with the fact that you enter atmosphere at speed. But as you do enter the upper atmosphere, there is a sudden computer alert as the shuttle's power systems suddenly start to flicker. So you end up coming down a little more rapidly than you at first might have anticipated or intended. However, well, let's actually see how well you manage a landing. So basically, Sot, Gurkow, and Garrow are going to be sat in the back, gripping their seat handles, whilst Baruva and Tabish have to basically fly down pretty dang fast. So, the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to get you guys to give me a piloting task to get the shuttle down safely as it passes through the highly ionized upper atmosphere. So, let me see. Obi, you're going to be assisting. This is going to be control and con. You can try and use Starfleet protocols as a focus to try and help reinitialize systems as they go offline.
I'm sure there's protocols for whatever's happening now.
Yeah, things are going offline, so engage backup systems, try and reroute power. Tabish, meanwhile, is the one flying this thing by the seat of her pants. So I'm going to say, rather than control and con, this is going to be daring and con for Tabish. One success there, and can I get... Chris, you haven't rolled as much as Connie. We're going to chance it. Chris, you can be the shuttle. So if you look in the same folder where you found the Combs...
Yeah, I got it.
You have a shuttle and the Type 6A shuttle. The shuttle is going to be assisting with, let me see, structure and con.
Okay.
This is going to take power out of it, so I'll knock that down. So 1 dice from structure and con for the shuttle, please. I won't say what the difficulty is. I'll keep that to myself to see if you manage it. So that leaves Tabish to give us the daring and con with 2 dice with a focus on shuttle racer.
Can I take 1 from the momentum?
If you want to.
I'm just asking the rest of the
Everyone
team.
all right with him taking
Oh, yeah.
1 point of momentum?
No objections here.
All right. So
Take as many as you want. We don't want to die.
Yes, indeed. You've already reached the. You've already had 2 dice, so this will be the maximum number of dice you'll be allowed. Is 3 more.
So using a focus as well.
Yep.
Yep.
Do it. Well, the good news is no complications. Hooray! And you rolled 1 over what was needed, so you get that 1 back into the momentum pool. The shuttle suddenly loses power, but you do manage to compensate and shunt power through, but the descent isn't exactly slow. You know that feeling you get when you go off a roller coaster and you go down really rapidly, you leave your stomach up somewhere in your brain? That's the feeling that everybody gets as they suddenly find the shuttle nosediving a lot faster than it intended. Gurkow may end up needing to use the toilet, yes, to alleviate any motion sickness she may have. So yes, it's there if you need to use it.
Lieutenant Tavish is pretty much going woohoo.
I was going to say.
I imagine it's one of those scenes where the little joystick comes out from underneath the console.
Yep, probably. What were you going to say, Dave?
Yeah, she's just basically going woohoo on the way down. Even when things seem like they're going wrong, she is having the time of her life.
So, at the risk of doing one of the regular in this hobby cross-franchise comments, I just kind of picture the scene from I think it's Attack of the Clones, the second Star Wars Episode 2, where Anakin and Obi-Wan are in the speeder going down really, really quickly. Obi-Wan's there going, "Pull up, Anakin, pull up!" And Anakin's there going,
Yeah,
that's
pretty much.
what I've got in mind. So the ground is coming up really, really fast, and everyone's there going, "Pull up, Tavish, pull up!" And then Tavish slams on the brakes, yanks back the stick, and the shuttle comes to a very abrupt halt.
And everybody's sitting in the front now.
Dr. Sott may have just become the new windshield mascot. As he goes sliding down it. No, I won't say that, but yes. That was possibly one of the most rapid shuttle descents most of you have remembered having, so... But you're alive. You check yourselves up and down to make sure all your bits are still in the same place as you left them. Thankfully they are.
I hope it's like that on the way back up.
The commander will say, well done, Lieutenant, as he peels himself off the windshield.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, that was nothing. You should have been with me 6 months ago.
I mean, I've had... This is not the most difficult thing I've had to do in a shuttle. Anyway, that's for a later discussion.
All right, I'm going to take us to what you find when you exit the shuttle. So, you find a broken and barren volcanic landscape before you. As noted previously, as you look out the view screen of the shuttle, the terrain looks to be mostly volcanic rock, ash, and sand. There are some sparse pieces of vegetation you can see around the place that are clinging to life. Sharp, rocky ledges and deep ravines will probably make traversing the terrain difficult, but not impossible. The sensors indicate that you are close to where the Combs' sensors reckoned the comm badges were transmitting from. But you can see no wreckage of a runabout, nor any artificial structures or facilities at all. So, feel free to exit the shuttle if you wish. I'm going to assume that there's an exit door around about here.
Well, is the atmosphere breathable?
The atmosphere reads as breathable, it's just not going to be comfortable.
Got that Galaxy Quest line, isn't there? Is there air? You don't know.
Exactly.
Tavish is going to make sure that the power systems all are ready for when they want to take off in a very quick manner.
Okay. There is... Sorry, go on, Dave.
Yeah, we'll just do some engineering stuff on the shuttle.
Giving a quick check over. Okay.
Yeah.
What you find is that the systems are kind of flickering on and off. There is a constant... there's a constant effect of interference going on from whatever. Down here on the planet's surface, the signal is still detectable and very powerful and prevalent to anybody who uses a tricorder. The amount of electromagnetic interference in the atmosphere means that the takeoff is probably going to be bumpy, and you're going to need to do something to shunt the systems into overdrive in order to get enough power to lift off, and then it's going to be a case of trying to keep the thing aloft if the interference is still present when you try and leave the surface again. So it's not going to be easy, but you can at least do a bit of preparatory work now to try and maybe activate some EM shielding for some of the more important systems.
Can I use Miracle Worker as a talent to do something
modification?
On like a modification.
Okay. Repairs or modifications, going on in advance of expectations, going up on whenever you use engineering on an extended task. This doesn't yet qualify as an extended task, and I'm not going to go into what that entails just yet, because I have been bombarding you with rules and stuff so far. What I will say is, give me a reason and engineering check. I'm going to keep the difficulty a bit to myself, and we'll just see how many successes you accrue in order to determine how successful you were in incorporating some improvised EM shielding for the primary systems of the shuttle.
Can I use... I don't know... Will I be able to use either power systems or experimental technology?
Yeah, warp engines, power systems, warp field dynamics all work as applicable foci.
And that's
whatever
2
the
dice.
word. That's 2 dice. Unless you want to buy extra with momentum. 1 success. Okay, I will keep that in mind for later. Meanwhile, everybody else is outside and is having a good old look around. So, I'm going to ask somebody, anybody in the team outside, to nominate themselves as the primary, and to be the one scanning with the tricorder using insight and science. Whoever would like to volunteer.
I would do that. Can I use my sensory replacement talent as well?
Ooh. Due to physical injury, or we haven't actually established yet which parts of Neshalal will actually replaced. Shall we say in interests of, because you brought it up as a sensory thing, maybe one of her eyes?
Oh, wait.
Or did you have something else in mind?
I think it's got to be eyes.
Yeah, okay. What we'll do then is, on your character, in the traits section, we'll just put artificial... Single eye or both eyes?
I think 1 eye.
1 eye. Artificial eye. So that trait is a trait your character has due to the sensory replacement talent, and that can be used to create advantages, or it can be used for me to plague you with complications. Sorry, I chuckled. Didn't mean to. I can't help myself sometimes. I just, yeah, Dick Dastardly it. I don't even remember how Dick Dastardly chuckled. That was a really bad example. Whoever's watching the stream, blank back.
How he laughed more than...
I remember how Muttley laughed, and I can't do that without coughing up a lung, so...
No, I don't think anybody can.
Right then, Connie, if I could get you to give me an insight and science check. This is going to be difficulty 1 as you consult your tricorder. Two successes, which means you got 1 over what you wanted. Okay, so... Neshalal consults her tricorder and starts to look for the... well, to see what she can find according to the tricorder. You get a note that indicates the signal, the strange alien signal, and you start to gain something of a reading on what you think are is the location of the Starfleet comm badges. It's at that point that you also read a pair of life forms very close by, and it's lucky that you did, because you see one of them, or both of them, out of the corner of your eye, you notice a figure lean around the corner of an outcropping of rock, and then fire a line of green disruptor energy in your direction.
Oh.
Sound effect? Hello? No? Okay. Sometimes it doesn't always play.
Oh, it played for me.
Yeah, same here.
Okay, it didn't play for me, which is weird. But there we are. A green disruptor beam fires out. And yes, there apparently is a Romulan or two hanging around the rock formations, which means that we now get a chance to experience what combat equates to in Star Trek adventures. So, there is, for those who have used other systems before, there is the notion of initiative. We do not, contrary to what I appear to be doing now, for those who are watching the stream, I am not actually rolling initiative. I am just... So all of that happened, those are all meaningless numbers, don't worry about them. The order that people go in during a combat encounter is usually one of you, one of them, one of you, one of them, and so on until everybody has had a turn. So because you have not been taken by surprise, you get to determine which of your guys goes first. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So basically, Baruva, Garrow, or Gurkau, or Sot can choose to take some actions first. Who would you?
Are
want
any of
to
our
go first?
stats? Also, I was going to do any of our stats, like attributes or anything, contribute to how well we do with the accuracy or things like that? You know.
Yeah, well, obviously, those who are going to be firing weapons, that's going to call on control and security. So whoever's got better control and security, cough, Garrow, cough, will probably do better.
Yeah, I see. We start with a Bajoran.
Yeah.
Start with the Bajoran. All right. Who would want to go after the Bajoran? Would the Doctor want to do it? Would Neshlal want to do it in order to get out of the way? Would Baruva want to do it so that he could lend assistance or issue a command or something?
Yeah, I'll go after him to kind of maybe
Cool.
come up with like an attack strategy here or something.
So that means you would be 5. Then one of them would be 4. Then one of you would be 3. Now, for the moment, I'm going to put our chief engineer last because Tavish was in the shuttle doing stuff when this fight broke out. So the order I've currently got is Security Chief Garrow, then one of the Romulans, then Commander Baruva, then one of the Romulans, then Gurkau, then Sot, and then Tavish. Is that order okay?
Cool.
Makes sense.
Yes. Let's change the atmosphere a little bitty bit to something a bit more exciting. So we begin. Lieutenant Garrow. He is going to need to... Right, so he is going to do what most of you do in this case. You've got a quick action and a slow action available to you. Garrow's quick action in this case will be to draw his phaser. I am going to, by use of some assistance here, I'm going to make it very rude, but it's... Dave has used other role-playing game systems before. Obi is already aware of how this works. For Chris and Connie, your characters don't have a set movement distance. You actually just move what's called zones. So I am going to determine that this area here around the shuttle is one zone. And so this area here is a different zone, which means this area here is another zone, and so on and so forth. Using a quick action, another quick action, Gurkau could move from the zone he's currently in into another zone, maybe the same one as the Romulans. Or he could move into a different zone away from the Romulans in order to try and draw fire. But because he's already used a quick action to draw his weapon, any extra quick actions would have to be bought with momentum. To fire his weapon at the Romulans is a slow action and will require a roll of the dice. Now, as security officer, Garrow is probably going to want to take the fight to the Romulans. Because he's not really moving that far, I'm going to say he's just going to step forward. And he's going to take a shot. He's going to take a shot at this Romulan over here, who's at the same level at ground level, like you guys, whereas this one, the other Romulan, is on a bit of a flat ledge. So it's got higher ground. But they're also both behind cover, but we'll get to that in just a moment. So, Garrow is going to aim at that Romulan. He is going to use control and security. So, let's go with, because Dr. Sott is a doctor and therefore is less likely to be a combat character, I'm going to allow Chris to roll for Lieutenant Garrow.
Cool.
So, Chris, you've got control and security already pre-done for you. The difficulty of any ranged attack is 2. He has got a focus in phases, so you get to add that. Check that focus box. So, roll away and see if he hits.
2 dice, yeah, sorry, before I do it.
2 dice, yes, unless he's buying
you.
more with momentum. 2 successes, which means he got exactly what he needed. We're not done yet with Garrow. Now, if you look, under Belongings, there's a section that says Weapons. Garrow has got a Type 2 phaser and a Type 3 phaser. Now, I am assuming that he's using the dolphin-headed, as they call it, Type 2 phaser. If you notice, if you roll your cursor over the image for the Type 2 phaser rather than its name, it turns into a dice.
Yeah.
If you click that, like I've just done there, I'm not going to use that as the roll, but I'm just showing you how to do it. You've done it, so I'll take your roll. That's the amount of damage that the phaser blast does. Now, it does say that you scored 4 effects. The trouble there is that the phaser, as a weapon, has got a special quality on it called charge. You haven't used the charge because Garrow didn't have enough of an opportunity to change its settings. We can come to that in somebody else's turn. For now, it was just an off-the-hip kind of shot. 5 successes, which means that it causes 5 points of damage. Now, the Romulan is behind cover, so I'm going to have him roll a single dice to represent his cover. I got 1 and an effect, which means that he takes 1 off of the damage, because some of that phaser shot hits the rock he was using as cover. The rock explodes and showers the Romulan with pieces of debris, and instead inflicts 4 stress. So the Romulan's stress track goes down. Everybody's stress track is the green bar at the bottom of their character tokens. So there we are. That was a successful shot and a hit, more or less, from the phaser from Garrow. Next, it will be a Romulan's turn. That Romulan wants to return fire. Since Garrow just shot at him, it's fitting that Garrow be the target. Now it's my turn. I've got some threat available to me. I am going to spend a point of threat to give the Romulan an extra dice when he rolls control and security to attack. He is using a focus, so I get 3 dice. I am going to roll. I roll a complication, as well as the 2 successes necessary. So, hum. Complication for me. What could that mean? Because technically it's a hit. What I'm going to do then is apply the complication to only deal half damage to him with the disruptor pistol. Because it was a glancing shot that the Romulan did in retaliation. That doesn't catch Garrow as full on as Garrow's shot caught him. So I will take that and I will halve it. 3 effects. Now, the Romulan Disruptor has the quality of vicious, which means that it does extra damage if I roll effects. I rolled 3 effects, so it in fact does 6. However, because of the complication, I'm reducing it down to just 3. So Garrow loses 1, 2, 3 stress. So Garrow's reflexes mean that he doesn't get struck by the disruptor hit, but it is a damned near miss. And that is, of course, putting a strain on his faculties as his adrenaline kicks in. Now it's Commander Baruva's turn.
Here's an idea.
Yep.
What if I had Lieutenant Tavish activate the shields on the
shuttle?
The Runabout, the shuttle.
Okay. You could use
Would those
that.
encompass us and give us some form of cover from the disruptor blasts?
It would be a feasible idea. Yeah. Okay, so you can issue that order, which means that you can hold off on rolling anything for now, because that will be Baruva aiding Tavish in her attempt to activate the shields and widen the shield bubble to encompass the away team. But that would be your slow action. Do you want to use your fast action to move anywhere?
Yeah, I'm gonna also. I'll move around behind the
shuttle to get to behind the nose. Okay, cool. Using it as cover. Nice. Alright, so that's pretty much all Baruva can do for now, because we're saving your roll until it comes time to do Tavish's turn as well. Okay, now we move to the other Romulan. The other Romulan has got Dr. Sott in his sights. So Dr. Sott is going to get shot by a Romulan. So let me just check Romulan's ability. Okay, this is going to be using guerrilla tactics, so that's going to be a focus. This is going to be a shot. I gain 2 successes, which is exactly what I needed.
Oh, heck.
Disruptor pistol fires. I don't roll all that much. There was 1 effect, so it does 4 stress. Now, Dr. Sott can use a point of determination to avoid the shot and leap out of the way.
Yeah, he's quite spry for his age. Let's do it.
Okay, so knock off 1 of your points of determination, probably number 3, as it counts down. That represents Sott, using reflexes and reserves that he didn't know he had to quickly dive out of the way so that the disruptor shot hits empty ground where Sott would otherwise have been. That does mean that Sott is currently on his face on the floor, but it means he's dove for cover. Dived for cover? Dove for cover? I dove for cover, therefore I did dive for cover. Okay, there we go. I get there eventually. So that was a response from you. Now we get to Neshlel. Well, what does Neshlel want to do? Now I hasten to note that Neshlel has got hand-to-hand combat as a focus.
Yeah. I'm going to
run at them.
Go to the other zone. That's not what we're in.
Okay.
Yeah, and try to flank them.
Okie dokes. So, yep, basically drag Neshlel down to there. Now, because you used a quick action to move to an adjacent zone, if Neshlel wants to draw her phaser, she's going to need to use a point of momentum to do so. Or is she going to save it?
I think she'll save it now.
Right, so what you can do is... Let me think. As your slow action, what you can do is maybe give me a daring and security check to see if Neshlel can hug the ground and try and avoid notice. none of your focuses really apply here. So it's just going to be daring and security. And this is going to be what's called an opposed roll. So I'm going to roll to see if the Romulans notice. They use insight and security to notice targets. And they have the paranoid trait, therefore they get a bonus. I only got I got 2 successes, where you got 1. So Romulans being naturally paranoid, as MacLeod tries to hug the ground and stay low to try and avoid detection, she does notice that the Romulan closest to her is tracking her position and is trying to aim with his disruptor. But technically, he's had his go, so he won't be able to fire just yet. But okay, wasn't bad. MacLeod's moving, keeping low, trying to get around behind them. Dr. Sott. If you're going to want to get up, you're going to need to use a quick action to get up, and if you want to move anyway, you're going to need to use a quick action to move, so it's up to you what you want to do.
Yeah, I think I'd like to... It's not marked, but can I go, like... Is this out of bounds? Just behind this ridge?
It's not out of bounds, it's just another zone.
Okay, I'd like to... Or is it use 1 momentum to do the 2 actions? Like
Yes.
to get up and then go over there?
Yes.
I'll use 1 momentum if that's okay, just to get out into cover.
Everybody alright with
Yeah,
that?
that's fine. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. I'll remove it. There we are.
Cool beans. And yeah, Dr. Sott makes a run for it, and it's a slightly lower position, so you will be able to have cover, thanks to the shelf of volcanic stone. So that's not bad. Now we get to Tavish. Tavish has been sent a request by Baruva to activate the shuttle's shields to try and encompass those at least within proximity of the shuttle. So to do that, you're going to need to give me a control and engineering check. You don't have shield systems as a focus, so it's just going to be control and engineering check for Tavish, but she will be getting Baruva using insight and command as an assist. So if I could first get Obi to give us the insight and command check. Rolling 1 dice and let's see.
I think advisor could help, but
As far
I
as
don't think I have any
focuses go,
help.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't really see any.
So advisor will at least allow Tavish to re-roll a dice if Dave feels the need to, but that focuses in this situation a bit. Well, there you go, you got 1 success, that's cool. So Tavish needs only 1 more success to activate the shields and encompass those in the same zone. You got 2 successes, which means you got 1 over and above what you needed, therefore that point of momentum that was spent by Dr. Sott is put back in the momentum pool. Nicely done. Tavish, that was Tavish's slow action. Tavish has a swift action, or quick action I should say, fast action. I will get it right at some point. This is what happens when you play too many other game systems. Do still have a fast action remaining. Does Tavish want to stay in the shuttle? Does Tavish want to get out of the shuttle? What do you want to do?
Okay.
Get out of the shuttle. The shields are up, so you've got that going for you. So, yeah. Alright then. That's Tavish. So we come back around to the beginning of our turn. Excuse me. Now it's Lieutenant Garrow's turn. Again, we start from the start. So, what would you like Garrow to do? Garrow, like Nashlel, has got hand-to-hand combat, but he's also good with phasers, so he could do either ranged or hand-to-hand. He is a bit exposed at the moment, standing out in the open, but he does have the benefit of the shuttle shields at the moment. So what would you like Garrow to do, since Chris himself is not here to say? Do you think he should charge into hand-to-hand combat range or stay back here and fire?
I would think you'd probably maybe get better cover and start firing.
Any particular target? The same one as he shot before, or the one that's drawing a bead on Lieutenant Gurkha?
I'd say the same one.
What were you going to say, Chris? Or was it Dave?
I was going to say same one.
Dave was going to say the same one. But because I got somebody's name wrong, I'm going to take away a point of threat from myself. Promise is a promise, after all. I did say I was going to do it. The same goes with character names, too. If I confuse character names, then I'm going to remove a point of threat from my pool. Because otherwise, naughty Matt. Go for the same guy. Okay, Chris, once again, you could do the same attack, control, and security, please, from Lieutenant Garrow.
Of course.
However, before he does, I was going to explain the use of a phaser. A Type 2 phaser has the quality charge, which means that it has control settings that can be used to change what the weapon does. Let me just find out where that is. So, the weapon has an adaptable energy supply, allowing its potency to be scaled to various levels. If the character performs the prepare minor action as a quick action, fast action, before attacking with the weapon, you can add one of the following weapon damage effects to the weapon. Area, which means it can cover more than one target. Intense, which means that any injuries it inflicts are that much harder to recover from. Piercing, where it basically goes through armor. Or vicious, where it deals extra damage. Which do you think Garrow would like to use, if any?
Oh, good question. So
Extra
I'm looking
area, extra damage, or extra armor penetration?
They don't really have armor, do they? So I guess it's like just straight up extra damage.
Straight up extra damage, vicious quality. Okie doke. So, it doesn't require any tinkering or changes on your end, it just is something to bear in mind. So Garrow uses his fast action to change the settings on the phaser, and yeah, can now use control and security to see if he can hit the Romulan. 2 successes, once again, exactly what was needed. So now roll damage for the phaser. But now effects mean something. Ooh, this is interesting. Right. 8 successes, 1 effect. Because you used the vicious, every effect adds 1 extra point of damage, but we only get 1. That was 9 successes in total then. He is behind cover, and I get an effect as well, which means he reduces 2, but that takes 6 stress as an even more powerful shot is issued by Lieutenant Garrow that disintegrates most of the rock that the Romulan is using as cover, and therefore makes him get scraped and scratched with exploding debris. He is not looking very happy. He's got a number of visible wounds now on his face and arms and torso, as his uniform is now taking a hang of a beating, as well as his skin. Very good, Lieutenant Garrow. Now it's that same Romulan's turn. This guy isn't liking how things are going. He is using, let me think. I am going to use 2 threat to represent the Romulan is now using suppressing fire. So he's basically creating a complication for you guys. This is similar to creating an advantage, but it's obviously the opposite. An advantage is creating something positive. A complication is creating something negative. So in this case, I'm spending 2 threat. If you guys were to do something similar, you'd be spending momentum. But I'm spending 2 threats to create a disadvantage called suppressing fire, which means that the difficulty to actually hit any targets goes up, as the Romulan is basically firing on the move and is trying to get your characters to keep their heads down. So he created the advantage. Now he's running. No, he's not creating new text. He's not creating new text. He is running in this direction, laying down rapid, inaccurate, but suppressing shots as he goes, which means we're over to Baruva. Baruva, the shields on the shuttle are now up. You think you just saw one of the Romulans running away. What would you like Baruva to do now?
He'll use his quick action here. Now, does the phaser have like a range increment?
Let me see. Which phaser have you got? You've got a Type 2, so you can shoot anybody in an adjacent zone without any trouble. If it's 2 zones away, it'll become more difficult. And if it's 3 zones away, it'll become even more difficult again. Now, at the moment, you've got the benefit of a very close, tight environment going on around here. So, big squiggles. That's the kind of another area, another zone, which means that the Romulan is also running off into another completely different zone.
So can I use momentum to move to like here?
Can you, oh, something I neglected to show you, yeah, the ping. If you can ping where you want it to end up, which I imagine is here.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, you can use momentum to move.
Is that alright with everybody?
Sure.
Alrighty. Maneuver yourself into the area you wanted to maneuver to.
So, and that's still kind of providing cover from this cat down here because it's kind of on the other side of this
Yes, definitely.
boulder setup thing. And then I'll use my long action to try to fire at this guy that's fleeing because
No, the guy that's
he'll probably
fleeing.
tell his plans
Alright.
and
Alright.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah,
leave
that's
no
a
ones.
control and security check, if you please. This is going to be difficulty 3 because of the suppressing fire that Romulan laid down.
And then add 2 dice.
2 dice, yes please. If you don't have any focuses relevant to hand phases, then it'll just be on that.
Oh, I forgot to change the difficulty.
That's changed. Don't worry about it. I keep it in my head anyway.
Yeah.
1 success, so I'm afraid that is a wild shot. But he definitely knows that you're in position to shoot at him because you fire a phaser beam that just narrowly misses him. And he looks back cautiously to see you looking in his direction as he's looking to continue to escape. But that's all Baruva can do for now. We've got cover from the other Romulan, and the first Romulan doesn't seem that interested in fighting at this particular point. Speaking of the other Romulan, he now knows his fellow has retreated. He's got Baruva on one side of him. He's got a very, very angry-looking Tellurite moving in his direction too. So, who to go for? I can't decide. I'm going to go for a roll of a D2. Basically going to flip a coin. It's either going to go for Baruva or it's going to go for Neshlel. So 1 Baruva, 2 Neshlel. Baruva! Okay. This Romulan obviously does not like the fact that you're closing in around him, so he is going to use his quick action to make a break for it in this direction. And is going to be firing in Baruva's direction. Baruva still has cover, but nonetheless, I'm going to keep it with guerrilla tactics. I've used a lot of my threat pool, and I've lost a lot of my threat pool, and I generate a complication. So that was an extremely wild shot the Romulan lets loose. Doesn't come anywhere near to hitting Baruva. And Romulan just basically is running away. We get to Neshlel. Now the guy has moved just out of the next zone and into another one. You would have to use momentum to catch up with him if you wanted to deck him. Or you could stay where you are, use a fast action to pull your phaser, and then your slow action to shoot him. Up to you. What would you like to do?
I think I'll shoot my shot. Get my phaser.
Whip out your phaser and give him a shot. So this is going to be a control and security check for yourself. None of your focuses really apply.
No.
And it's just going to be a straight up phaser shot, so give it some. Feel free to use momentum if you want to use momentum. One success. Okay. So that, sadly, is a shot that goes slightly wide. But it doesn't look like the Romulans are interested in continuing this fight because they look like they are running away. As such, Dr. Sott, what would you like to do from your current position?
Yeah, I mean, I think we should try and at least capture one alive to get some information. Thing is, a big old rock in the way now, isn't there? What are my options? I guess all I can do at the moment, really, I'll take a shot. Hopefully, I can specify that I don't want to kill him.
Well, yeah, you've got stun setting, and this is a good point.
Brilliant.
I am assuming everybody is using a stun setting. If you do not use a stun setting and you go lethal, you do need to tell me. The consequence of that being, if you do go for lethal force, I get a point of threat because you are escalating hostilities.
Cool. Yeah, no, very much on stun. I'll take a shot. I'll take a shot at the fella to the left of me.
All right then. So
Like
that
one
is,
phaser.
Yeah, that is. So you get one of the teeny weeny ones.
Awesome.
It's no bigger than a USB stick, at least the old USB sticks. But a bit fatter. So that is control and security, if you please. I doubt Dr. Sott has got any. No, unless he's learning. He's going to philosophize. He's going to weaponize his philosophy. That's just going to be control and security, difficulty 2, if you please. 2 successes, which means you hit.
My God.
So managing more than the belligerent Tellarite did. Actually, I lie because the suppressing fire actually upped the difficulty to 3. So I do apologize. I gave you a false sense of victory there.
Jubilation.
Because the Romulan was laying down rapid shots to keep everybody's heads down, you are allowed only a cursory shot that just barely misses him. It lets him know that you're there and intent on shooting them at the very least. Because you drew your weapon and fired it, that's all Sott can do for now. Tavish, anything Tavish wants to do? Dave?
I don't think there's much Tavish can do.
Draw a weapon and fire, or tell everybody else that you think the Romulans are bugging out, so gather back, scan for something, anything you can think of.
Right, gonna go back in the ship.
Let's call it a day. Let's just back to the
Screw you
ship.
guys, I'm going home.
I mean, I did have an idea, but
What was the idea?
I'm not gonna do. No, I'm not doing the idea because it means you get a threat. So.
Aha!
Which,
And you're eyeing my threat pool and going, ah, he's only got 3 left.
Yeah. I was thinking of, turning the ship.
You were going to ram a Romulan with a shuttle.
No, I was going to use whatever weapons are on this shuttle to fire at the Romulans.
Well, that poses an interesting dilemma, actually, because a Type 6 shuttle has no weapons.
Oh, okay. Oh, well,
So that kind of precludes that idea.
Also, might be kind of hard to stun them with torpedoes.
Well, yeah, a ship-class weapon on stun, even on stun, is going to be...
That's why I said it was going to give you the threat.
Yeah.
Is that it won't be on stun.
Okay.
Yeah, gonna scan the adjacent area. While everybody's doing this, I'm going to see if I can pick up any other life signs that are around.
Okay.
Instead of what we've got at the moment.
So can I get you to give me control and science? And can I get Obi to open up the Type 6A shuttlecraft character sheet, if you can find it? It's where you look for the codes. Because the shuttle is going to be aiding with sensors and security. So if I can get Obi to do the 1 dice of the shuttle systems using sensors and security to aid first, I'm going to make this difficulty 2 because of the EM interference. Oh dear.
The ship doesn't want to help.
The ship does not want to help. So, yep, that's control and science from Tavish, please. Difficulty 2.
That complication goes up to 2, yeah?
That complication is for me to determine, but the EM interference is making it more difficult to scan for stuff, so I want you to consider this a difficulty 2 task. Control and science. You don't really have any focuses that apply.
When it comes to the dice pool, it says complication range. Do I change that from 1 to
No.
2, or... No, okay.
No, I haven't changed the complication range, so you're fine with that.
Number of dice pool is 2, yes.
Yep.
No focuses, no
Not
determination.
really that
value.
apply, no.
Nope, okay.
Unless you want to use the point of determination. Nope. Okay, 2 successes, exactly what you needed. Alright.
Shit.
The ship. Okay, the ship does scan for anything that could be useful, but in so doing, opens itself up to the EM interference and loses another point of power, leaving only 1 point of power remaining in the shuttle's battery system, power core, whatever you want to call it, to basically do anything else with, which probably means that you're going to have to turn off the shields that you were using to protect whoever was near the shuttle, because otherwise the shuttle's going to have no power left. What with the interference causing havoc. But the good news there is that if I can just turn that off, and these guys. The Romulans are not interested in fighting anymore. They tried their best. They almost caught you unawares, but thankfully Lieutenant Gurkow did spot them quickly and was able to detect their attack before they managed an ambush. As such, the Romulans are not happy with the odds being against them and flee westwards, northwestwards it seems, and as you are all gathering together, it's probably dangerous to try and pursue the Romulans on foot. You don't know where they might be trying to lead you, so it would make more sense for you guys to hang back. For the most part, Garrow is a bit frazzled, but he's otherwise okay. Didn't suffer any injury, it was a close thing. Dr. Sott himself can give him the once-over just to check that he's okay, and he has suffered no injury. Thankfully, the shuttle didn't take any damage either from the disruptor fire. All that you've done is basically cause a lot more shattered rock nearby. And when Lieutenant Tavish scans the area, even though it opens up the shuttle to the EM interference and fries some of the systems, you do indeed detect the presence of Starfleet comm badges very, very close by. And that is where we are going to leave it for this week. You'll have to tune in next week to see what happens next. So, all in all, this was our first episode and therefore our first official outing as a crew together, you and I. So, we can do feedback and all of that after we say goodbye to everybody on the stream. But overall, the crew of the Combs have endured going through some of the more difficult areas of unexplored space. The ship, however, has come through it, but only with minimal damage. And you yourselves have met stiff resistance from Romulans, of all people, on the surface of Seku 6. You've still got the crew of the Susquehanna to find, indeed the Susquehanna itself. There's now the question of what the Romulans are doing here to consider, and of course the nature of the alien signal to consider. But that, like I indicated, is for everybody to tune in to our game next week to find out the conclusion to this little story. This story comes from the Star Trek Adventures Quick Start pack. The episode is called Signals. You can also find it in the Shackleton Expanse Campaign guide, but I am predominantly using that found in the Quick Start guide because it helps everybody get used to the rules and how to play, I like to think. Thank you everybody who tuned in to the stream, if you did so. If you're watching this stream later on YouTube, I'm going to ask you to please consider giving the video a like, because it helps those of us who do actual plays of role-playing games show other people how much fun we have. So it helps our artificial intelligence masters determine our worth via algorithm. All hail our machine lords. And
All hail.
All hail indeed. To those of you who are watching the stream, I thank you very much for tuning in. I ask you all to very much be kind to each other and remember to practice infinite diversity in infinite combinations, just like the Vulcans do. I will ask you all to live long and prosper as we close our hailing frequencies for this week.